Welcome back to the Life Burst Podcast. I'm Andrew, and I am here to talk to you about one of the new centers from Prismatic Diva. It's Hanare! So, to read Hanare and what it does here, we'll discuss what Hanare is good at, and then sort of the deck direction I took it in. Hanare is a level 3 black Elrig with the twist. It does a lot of the things that most black Elrigs does, but it does a little bit of a twist on it, which is that when it enters, you target a Signy, and then if that Signy would have its power decreased this turn, it gets doubled the amount that it would get decreased. It's also paired nicely with the other ability here, which is that once per turn you can take the top card of your deck, put it into the trash, and then when you do, it will give negative 2,000 for each level that was milled from the top of your deck. So if you mill level 1, it's 2,000. If you mill level 2, it's 4,000. If you mill level 3, it's 6,000. Should this be on the turn where it entered, though, those numbers are 4,000, 8,000, and 12,000, which is pretty cool. So here's the last ability, which is once per game. When a Signy on your opponent's field with power is 0 or less would be vanished. Instead of putting it into the enter zone, it goes into the trash. Which makes it, these abilities all put together basically make you go into two different directions. You either want to go mid-range, where you can maximize that once per turn power by doing it over and over and over again and getting yourself the best result that you can, or you want to go into control, because you might like that enter denial aspect. If you were going to be enter denial control deck, you probably want to be running something like black, red, and white in order to maximize the effects in those colors. White gives you taxing and enter denial, whereas red gives you maybe a little bit of enter burn, and then this gives you the power to deal damage to the opponent. That's one direction that you could go with it. The other direction that I ended up going with it was a more mid-range approach. There was two basically angles that I wanted to do to maximize all the abilities in this deck. And the first one was the actual deck structure itself. So if you take a peek over here, Dexys is awesome. It has amazing abilities to do this. And if you want to find the list, just check my link down below, see all my Dexys lists. And you can see that I've done 16 level 1s. Normally nowadays I'm doing 18 level 1s, but I've minimized the amount here. 16 level 1s, 9 level 2s, and 15 level 3s. And that's because I really was trying to push it more into that level 3 territory, but level 2 also being acceptable. My number that I want to hit for basically a free vanish every turn with Hanare is negative 3,000. So a level 2 or a level 3 will do it together. Those put that over half your deck at that point into that, almost 2/3 of your deck. So I like that, but there was another reason why I specifically went with this color combo instead of red, which is kind of a nice pairing with it. And that is because these colors give us access to 2 deck filters, specifically deck filters that keep cards on the top of your deck. Hakat being honestly one of the best ones that you could be possibly running. And outside of that, then Proto Energy. Proto Energy leaves 1 on top of your deck. So your goal is to manipulate the top of your deck so you're always hitting level 3s on the top of your deck, basically. And that's how we're maximizing the damage output with Hanare's ability. Almost every turn we're looking to do a negative 6,000, except on the turn where it's coming into play, of course, because that's a negative 12,000. Free negative 12,000 is nothing to sneeze at. It's very, very, very strong. Pairing this, I knew I wanted white, and with white you basically have 2 choices of assists to go with. You can either go with MC Lion Disrespect, I guess 3 choices. Akino if you end up being more of an aggro build, and the last build was going to be Yuki Yuka. Yuki Yuka shines best when it's and there's a world where you could use Yuki Yuka because Yuki Yuka allows you to have a field of 3/3/3, which means that you really can lean heavily on your deck build of being mostly level 3s. But Yuki Yuka, outside of that, is mostly a discard thing, and I didn't want to make this into a discard deck. I wanted to maximize on the deck structure and kind of pushing damage power, which is why we're more mid-range than anything else. Akino could have been fine there, too, but I just didn't have a ton of ways to have Enter in this deck, and I had Enter sinks elsewhere, so I kind of wanted to leave it as more of a 3-stop here. Having a 3-stop here also means that I get different choices for my blue options. Again, my only blue options were really like Umir, which I didn't love for this type of deck. Umir is a little better in more aggressive line decks. The other options were, of course, Madoka as a 3-stop, but I really wasn't going to run a lot of blue cards. I was going to run 4 Hakat, I knew, but pretty much nothing else. So I didn't run that, and I end up, when I'm in a scenario where I want to run blue cards, and I want some cool blue effects, but I also don't want to have any blue requirement, I always lean to Tamago. That's sort of my go-to here. In this case, it's Tamago Beating, which is just removal, which is fantastic. And it is really good removal because it does bottom things. Not that this has very much of a tax trash lean, but it does have a little bit of that going for it. The last one being on Tamago Jet Stick. Just being a quick grow, so that way it complements the 3-stop, and being able to draw me some more cards too. The next thing here is with, because you're going to be with these, by the way, with this, I should have mentioned, with this filtering, you are going to want to draw some cards off of Tamago occasionally. You are going to be like, ooh, there's 2 guards on the top, I'll leave those on top, I'll draw them with Tamago, and now I'll set myself up for something else later down the line. So inevitably, that's the route that I went to, with our piece options being Super Celestia Saber. If you're going to be mostly black and white, you're going to be running Super Celestia Saber. It's just the ultimate toolboxing spell. And one of the reasons why I also leaned less aggro and more mid-range is just because Super Celestia Saber is such a powerful card. And then, I could be going for Ultra Superheroes, and that's perfectly fine. Mill your opponent out 10 plus filter 2 and grab the 2 off the top is totally fine and doable. But I wanted a little bit more guard recursion in this deck because I am a little bit more mid-range, so I wanted a little bit more oomph too. And being able to, this card can read basically 3 enter open 3 lanes, between the -12,000, the put target signet from your field into the trash, from your trash into the field, and then bring a signet from your trash to your hand, right? It also has the mill 7, which is also one of the good uses for it. So against your more longer game control opponents, you're probably going to still end up using that mill stuff and get an extra damage in there. And it's a perfectly reasonable, sound choice to do. This plus Phalaris here is still mill 17, which is about 2 over the amount needed to refresh pretty much every deck. Plus you have Super Celestia Saber to bring it back, so you're almost always going to have the ability to go off with Miasma Labyrinth one way or another. All of those options are pretty good. In fact, the -12,000 is actually a little better in this deck than it is in some other decks, because you can make that -12,000 negative, 24,000, which will kill pretty much everything. So you have the ability to go off with that too. And it's not even that the -24,000 is absolutely necessary. It's just in order to maximize that turn 3 of wiping the board, or the turn where whatever turn you decide to set up with this ability to basically trash 3 signets. You're going to want to have easy access to some kind of negative effects. And between this once per turn effect, this effect where it gives -12,000, and then putting a signet from your trash to your hand or trash to the field, you're always going to find a way to give those negative effects, basically, and wipe out the team board. Moving along into the actual main deck itself here, pretty much everything else is pretty bog standard. We're running Nanashi because it gives negative effects, and that's important, right? Like, I wanted to go heavy into Mew, but Mew just vanishes. It doesn't actually give negative effects. It does bring back level 1s, and it's still very powerful, so it's still worth running, even though it doesn't necessarily help with the quote-unquote core combo. And Ogana here is, of course, a natural pairing if you have Nanashi, but on its own, Ogana is probably one of the most powerful black cards out there in general. Then, like I said, you've got a pretty good core filtering of 7 cards. I didn't think I needed more than that. It wasn't like I was trying to filter for a wombo combo. And sometimes the natural deck strength will hold up on its own, and you'll get -4,000 anyways with the level 2. Moving along from there, one of the more interesting options here was the Coruscant. Again, any deck that's got Mill in the Elrig deck, like as the center Elrig, I'm going to run Coruscant in it. It's horribly underutilized in America. But basically it reads, Vanilla's out everything, right? And there's a lot of problem cards out there too. Like there's cards that gain a lot of that are 3,000 power but are 7,000 on your opponent's turn. This turns them back into 3,000 and then gets killed very easily with the free vanish effect here. It doesn't stop Exia, at least not in this deck, although there are some ways to mill yourself in this deck without that. But it doesn't stop Exia. Then it stops things like Remember. It does vanilla quite a bit, and between, 2 Yukis, 3 Corsons, and of course a Super Celestia Saber to toolbox with, Mew to toolbox with, you're always going to find ways to vanilla out things. Which is quite strong. Anamirage complements, like I'm using 3, which is about 1 to 2 more than I normally would use in a deck. Complements the negative effects, just gives you another way to just more negative effect stuff. Like I said, here's another way here with the ability to get yourself cards from the trash to the field. I always love those kinds of things in my deck. Outside of that, it's your pretty standard stuff. I mean, I did put one Vile type in here just because I didn't know if I was drawing enough cards in this deck. So, I'm just hedging my bets here a little bit with the Life Burst. And also here, this Life Burst is very strong, gives negative effects. It's not like you're going to be doing that on your turn or anything, but it's a perfectly reasonable choice because we want to hit more level 2s than we normally would. So yeah, it means we're going to do some more vanillas than we normally would as well. I'm trying to think of anything else that's important to talk about with this deck here. It's pretty much the bog standard stuff. One last thing, Caesar. Caesar's kind of cool here because it needs the opponent to the Signy in front of it to have 5,000 power or less. So if you do end up failing on a vanish, Caesar actually is a kind of a nice little like plan B here. You can be like, well, I didn't quite get the vanish, but I dropped something down from 8,000 to 3,000. 8,000 to 3,000, I don't know, 8,000 to 5,000, cool, now I can use Caesar to sneak by it regardless. So there's always options for that kind of stuff here. I think this deck is pretty interesting. I don't think it has quite as much power as some of these other black centers might, but it has really nice combo potential. So if it's something you're interested, try it out. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below.